miles away from home, just sleeping in the rain. I went up to a brakeman just to give him a line of talk. He said, if you've got money, boy, well, I'll see that you don't walk. I haven't got a nickel, not a penny can I show. Get off, you railroad bum, and he slammed the boxcar door. He put me off in Texas, a state I dearly love. The wide open spaces all around me, and the moon and stars up above. No one seems to want me or to lend me a helping hand. I'm on my way from Frisco, heading back to Dixieland. My pocketbook is empty and my heart is full of shame. I'm 1,000 miles away from home, just waiting for a train. I'm 1,000 miles away from home, just waiting for a train. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Tennessee Walt, an evening in a distant country. It is July. I am still Tennessee Walt. My name still isn't Walt, and I'm still not from Tennessee. And we are still here in my living room, which I had hoped we would not be by now. I hoped we could get back to going to places to do shows, but I'm delighted to have you join me this evening for another round of songs. I'm also particularly delighted to be doing a show on Independence Day weekend because country is one of those distinctively American forms of music. It's distinctively American not only in that it arose in America, but also that it grew out of two earlier forms, which not only came from thousands of miles away from America, but thousands of miles away from each other. Country, as we know it today, is a fusion of the earlier forms, mountain ballads, which arose no later than the 16th century in northern England and Scotland, and the blues, an African-American form which draws on African music and is rooted in the Deep South. Now, if you're looking for something that would combine both of those, you could do no better than to look at Jimmie Rodgers, the man known as the father of country music. Rodgers was born in Meridian, Mississippi in 1897, where he grew up steeped in the African-American music of the Mississippi Delta. If the Carter family were mountain ballads with a side of blues, Jimmie Rodgers was blues with a side of mountain ballads. And both those heritages are visible in Waiting for a Train, which is from 1928. It sounds very much like a blues number, and it is, but it is actually a 19th century English ballad. So there you are, both of those traditions in a single song. Now, there's some more cool things I could tell you about that song, but I have a slight problem with the shows that I'm doing like this, which run about half an hour shorter than the shows that I do in person. The three responses that I've gotten the most often to these shows is, number one, we love the anecdotes about the songs. Number two, we love the information about the people behind the songs. And number three, you should talk less. So, the way I have dealt with this in the past show or two is to post a whole set of program notes on TennesseeWalt.com as the most recent entry in the blog on that site. And if you want to learn more about that song, or indeed any song in the program, all you need to do is visit TennesseeWalt.com and check out the blog. Don't do it right now, but do it And that's about it for the housekeeping, at least for the moment. If you've seen any of my three previous webcasts, and if you haven't, they are all available for viewing both on YouTube and right here on Facebook.com/TennesseeWalt, and under the menu labeled videos. If you've seen any of those shows, you know that this show is coming to you through the collaborative effort of more than 50 libraries in Nassau County, Suffolk County, Westchester County, and Bergen County. Not to mention our new friends at the Grand Ole Opry. Hey, Opry. So if you think you're going to make it through the evening without hearing me talk for a little bit about libraries, you have another thing coming. For the moment, though, we are back to songs. It has been a while since I've been able to go to church. I have not been to church except for funerals since March. But when I do a show on Sunday, I like to do one or two songs that are religious in spirit. This particular one was a gospel song when it was written in 1937 by the great Thomas A. Dorsey, not the band leader Tommy Dorsey, that's a whole different guy. And even more a gospel song when it was recorded later that same year by the great Mahalia Jackson. However, it became a country classic in 1951 when it was recorded by the great Red Foley. That's him right up here. Foley scored a big hit with this song, and then a big hit again 2 years later when he sang the song at the nationally broadcast funeral of Hank Williams. It sold more than 1 million copies in all and became Foley's signature song. I'm tired and I'm weary, but I must toil on till the Lord comes to call me away, where the morning is bright and the Lamb is the light and the night is as fair as the day. There'll be peace in the valley for me someday. There'll be peace in the valley for me. No more sorrow or sadness, nor trouble will be. There'll be peace in the valley for me. There the flowers will be blooming, the grass will be green, and the skies will be clear and serene. The sun will ever gleam, giving one endless beam, and the clouds there will never be seen. There'll be peace in the valley for me someday. There'll be peace in the valley, I pray. No more sorrow and sadness, nor trouble will be. There'll be peace in the valley for me. There the bear will be gentle, the wolf will be tame, and the lion will lay down by the lamb. The host from the wild will be led by a child. I'll be changed from the creature I am. There'll be peace in the valley for me someday. There'll be peace in the valley, I pray. No more sorrow and sadness, no trouble will be. There'll be peace in the valley for me. No more headache, nor heartache, nor misunderstand. No confusion or trouble will be. No frowns to defile, just one big endless smile. There'll be peace and contentment for me. There'll be peace in the valley for me someday. There'll be peace in the valley, I pray. No more sorrow and sadness, nor trouble will be. There'll be peace in the valley for me. And now I thought it might be fun to do a few songs from my 2018 show, Hank's a Lot, which is all about 13 different country stars who were named Hank. Now, as you might suspect, an awful lot of the songs that are in that show are by the great Hank Williams, but I thought for this evening it might be more fun to delve into some of the lesser-known Hanks who are equally great in their own way. For example, the great Hank Cochran, who was known as a songwriter primarily, though he also worked as a singer and guitar player. Cochran is the author of many songs that you've heard before. For example, the Patsy Cline classic, I Fall to Pieces. This one is from 1972. It was written for the great Merle Haggard, co-written by Cochran and by Glenn Martin. She was always there each time I needed you, holding on to me like I held on to you. We still don't have what you and I once had. Oh, it's not love, but it's not bad. Oh, it's not love, not like ours was. It's not love, but it keeps love from driving me mad. And I don't have to wonder who she's had. No, it's not love, but it's not bad. I turn to her when you leave me alone. Sometimes even when you're here and you're still gone. She's slowly changing what you leave so sad. Oh, it's not love, but it's not bad. Oh, it's not love, not like ours was. It's not love, but it keeps love from driving me mad. And I don't have to wonder who she's had. Oh, it's not love, but it's not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad. Another one of the great Hanks would be Hank Locklin, who was born in 1918 in Lakeland, Florida. Locklin had one of the longest careers in country music history, a 70-year career that ended only in 2009 when he died at the age of 91 actually, at the time the oldest living member of the Grand Ole Opry. Now, Locklin is best known today as the author of the fetishistic classic Send Me a Pillow That You Dream On, which has restraining order written all over it. But probably his best song is this one. It's from 1960. It was written by Don Robertson and Hal Blair. It was a tremendous hit. It has spent 14 weeks at number 1 on the country charts and made it to number 8 on the Billboard Top 40, which amasses songs of all genres. Please help me, I'm falling in love with you. Close the door to temptation, don't let me walk through. Turn away from me, darling, I'm begging you to. Please help me, I'm falling in love with you. I belong to another whose arms have grown cold, but I promise forever to have and to hold. I can never be free, dear, but when I'm with you, I know that I'm losing the will to be true. Please help me, I'm falling, and that would be sin. Close the door to temptation, don't let me walk in, for I mustn't want you. I do. Please help me, I'm falling in love with you. Another great Hank would be Hank Snow. He was a Canadian who was arguably the biggest Jimmie Rodgers fan of all time. He covered in the course of his career more than half of the 108 songs that Jimmie Rodgers recorded. He co-founded the Jimmie Rodgers Memorial Music Festival in Meridian, Mississippi, and he named his firstborn son Jimmie Rodgers Snow. So if he was not the biggest Jimmie Rodgers fan that ever lived, he is certainly in the conversation. Snow built a successful career in Canada during World War II, but when the war ended, he chucked it all and moved to Nashville and started over. This involved another 5 years of struggling, but finally he broke through in 1950 with a song he had written himself, which tied an all-time record, spending 21 weeks at #1 on the country charts. As you might expect from a Jimmie Rodgers fan, it was a train song. Track means your true loving daddy ain't coming back. I'm moving on, I'll soon be gone. You were flying too high for my little old sky. Now I'm moving on. That big loud whistle when it blew and blew said hello to the Southland. We're coming to you and we're moving on. Oh, hear my song. You had to laugh on me, now I'm setting you free, and I'm moving on. Mr. Fireman, won't you please listen to me? 'Cause I got a pretty mama in Tennessee. Keep moving me on, keep rolling on. So shovel the coal, let us rattle and roll. Keep moving me on. Mr. Engineer, take that throttle in hand. This rattle's the fastest in the southern land. Keep moving me on, keep rolling on. You gotta ease my mind, get me there on time. Keep rolling on. I warned you, baby, from time to time, but you just wouldn't listen or pay me no mind, so I'm moving on. I'm rolling on. You've broken your vows, so it's all over now, and I'm moving on. You switched your engine, now I ain't got time for no trifling woman on my main line, so I'm moving on. You done your daddy wrong. I warned you twice, now you can settle the price, 'cause I'm moving on. But someday, baby, when you've had your play, you're gonna want your daddy, but your daddy gonna say, keep moving on. You've been away too long. I'm through with you, too bad you're blue. But I'm moving on. Then we have Hank Thompson, born in 1925 in Waco, Texas. Thompson and his Brazos Valley Boys were among the biggest stars of the genre known as Western Swing. This was a subgenre of country music based on the idea of playing swing music on country instruments. Think of Glenn Miller, but wearing a cowboy hat. In the late 1950s, Thompson and some friends of his were driving along the border between Nebraska and Wyoming when they spotted a deer by the side of the road. Now, his friends were avid hunters, but the problem was they were on the Nebraska side of the road and the deer was on the Wyoming side. And while it was deer season in Nebraska, it was not yet deer season in Wyoming. Nonetheless, they pulled over and Thompson stayed with the car while his friends jumped over the fence and went after the deer. After a few minutes, Thompson heard shots, and then his friends came running back, carrying the deer, but with an irate game warden chasing them. They jumped the fence, piled into the car, and roared off just as the game warden came up to the fence. Now, after they had caught their breath, one of the friends said, "Wow, if that guy had caught up with us, we'd have all gone to jail." And Thompson said, well, not all of us. I was going to say, I don't even know these guys. They're total strangers. And just like that, Thompson had a song idea. Well, I was down upon my luck and jobs were hard to find. I was a little short on cash and my bills were way behind. I went to see my lifelong friend, an oil man now by trade. I figured as how he'd help me out with this fortune he had made. I said, old friend, I need your help. I hate to be so bold, but remember when I saved your life down at the swimming hole? Well, now I need a little help. If you can see your way, I'd like to have a little loan. And then I heard him say, excuse me, total stranger, I can't seem to recall. Are you absolutely certain that we've ever met at all? I'd really like to help you out as he opened wide the door. So long, total stranger that I've never seen before. A friend said, let's go hunting, I've got the guns and shells. The birds are really flying and I think we'll do quite well. He shot a half a dozen and then said, I suppose I really ought to tell you that the hunting season's closed. Well, about that time he heard a noise and he ducked behind a tree. He took the guns and shells and birds and gave them all to me. Up stepped the old game warden and found me standing there. But before I had a chance to talk, I heard my friend declare, he's just a total stranger, and I was passing by. I saw this total stranger shoot them birds out of the sky. It's a shame the way some people, the laws they do ignore, like this total stranger that I've never seen before. Now once I had a girlfriend who really caught my eye, and when my wife was out of town, I'd see her on the sly. We'd taken all the nightclubs and honky-tonk around, and joined in all the parties and really do the town. But then one night my wife came back. She must have smelled a rat. She looked around from place to place and found where I was at. Well, there we were, all cuddled up. I knew that I was dead. But before my wife could say a word, I jumped right up and said, she's just a total stranger who came in off the street. The joint was kinda crowded, so I offered her a seat. I couldn't leave a lady just a-standing on the floor. Not even a total stranger that I've never seen before. No, she's just a total stranger that I've never seen before. Now it's time to talk about honky-tonks, a term that is widespread in country music for some time now, despite the fact that it has largely a negative connotation. Merriam-Webster defines honky-tonk as, quote, a usually tawdry nightclub or dance hall, especially one featuring country music. And that's pretty accurate. The classic honky-tonk is a smoke-filled dive frequented by reckless men and shady women, the latter of whom are occasionally known as honky-tonk angels. And believe you me, that is not a compliment. Hank Thompson had his biggest hit in 1952 with a song by William Warren and Arlie A. Carter. It was a big hit. It spent 15 weeks at #1 on the country charts, and it told the story of a man who had married a woman he met at a honky-tonk, but lived to regret it. You wouldn't read my letter if I wrote you. You asked me not to call you on the phone. But there's something I'm wanting to tell you, so I wrote it in the words of this song. I didn't know God made honky-tonk angels. I might have known you'd never make a wife. You gave up the only one that ever loved you and went back to the wild side of life. The glamour of the gay nightlife has lured you to the places where the wine and liquor flow, where you wait to be anybody's baby and forget the truest love you'll ever know. I didn't know God made honky-tonk angels. I might have known you'd never make a wife. You gave up the only one that ever loved you and went back to the wild side of life. Yes, it hurts me to know that you don't love me, though I know that our love's forever gone. And it killed the soul and pride dear inside me to see you in that stranger's arms so long. I didn't know God made honky-tonk angels. I might have known you'd never make a wife. You gave up the only one that ever loved you and went back to the wild side of life, and went back to the wild side of life. Now, back in the 1950s, when a song was a big hit and the wild side of life was an immense hit, it would often spark one or more answer songs. Songs that were a rebuttal to the original song, a sequel to the original song, a spoof of the original song, or whatever. And indeed, a songwriter named J. Miller wrote an answer song to The Wild Side of Life in the voice of an actual honky-tonk angel, arguing that the original song was a travesty, a sexist travesty even, and that the only thing wrong with honky-tonks was the kind of men he met there. This song came with a problem, though, because it really needed to be sung by a woman, and at that point there really weren't any female country stars. Sarah Carter had been retired for more than a decade by this time, and country music in general was considered too disreputable. You know, think of all those seedy honky-tonks. Too disreputable for a respectable woman to have any interest in. Miller turned to a friend of his, an unknown singer named Kitty Wells, who occasionally worked as a backup singer for the country duo Johnny and Jack, which included her husband, Johnny Wright. Wells recorded the song, and to everybody's surprise, it shot to the top of the charts, dislodging The Wild Side of Life as #1 and launching the career of country's first ever female solo artist, Kitty Wells, soon to be known as the Queen of Country Music. Now, here to sing it for us is a favorite of Tennessee Walt fans, Texas Sally, a.k.a. Sarah Holiday.
As I sit here tonight, the jukebox playing your song about the wild side of life. As I listen to the words you are saying, it brings memories when I was a trustful wife. It wasn't God who made honky-tonk angels, as you said in the words of your song. Too many times married men think they're still single. That's caused many a good girl to go wrong. It's a shame that all the blame is on us women. It's not true that only you men feel the same. From the start, most every heart that's ever broken was because there always was a man to blame. It wasn't God who made honky-tonk angels, as you your song. Too many times married, they're still single. That's caused many a good girl to go wrong. It wasn't God who made honky-tonk angels, as you said in the words of your song. Too many times married men think they're still single. That's caused many a good girl to go wrong.
Thank you very much. My favorite Kitty Wells song is this one, which is from 1955. It was originally written and recorded by the singer-songwriter Jimmie but was a huge hit for Kitty Wells in 1955, and since then has been recorded by everyone from Ernest Tubb and Dolly Parton to Ray Charles and Bob Dylan. Making believe that you still love me, it's leaving me alone and so blue. But I'll always dream, since I'll never own you. Making believe is all I can do. I can't hold you close when you're not with me. You're somebody's love, you'll never be mine. Making believe I'll spend my lifetime loving you and making believe. Making believe that I never lost you, but my happy hours I find are so few. My plans for a future can never come true. Making believe, what else can I do? I can't hold you close when you're not with me. You're somebody's love, you can never be mine. Making believe I'll spend my lifetime loving you and making believe. Say, did you notice back then when we did The Wild Side of Life and It Wasn't God Who Made Honky-Tonk Angels, that they both had the same tune? Well, as it happens, this is one of the most revered tunes in the history of country music. Long before The Wild Side of Life had ever appeared, it was beloved by country fans as the tune to the Carter family's I'm Thinking Tonight of My Blue Eyes in 1929, and also of Roy Acuff's Great Speckled Bird in 1936. It was also used as the tune for this song, which was a hit for Johnny Cash in 1966, having been written by the great cowboy Jack Clement. From the back door of your life you swept me out, dear. In the breadline of your love I lost my part. At the table of your heart I got the brush off. In the lineup of your life I'm just a face. From the story of your life you erased me. In the screenplay of your love, I lost my part. I've been washed down the sink of your conscience. I've been flushed from the bathroom of your heart. In the dumpster of your dreams, you threw me out, dear. On the river of your love, I'm up the creek. In the elevator of your future, I got shafted. In your calendar of events, I'm last week. From the story of your life, you erased me. In the screenplay of your love, I lost my part. I've been washed down the sink of your conscience. I've been flushed from the bathroom of your heart. And now an update on the library situation. If you've seen any of the previous episodes of A Distant Country, you know that the libraries of Nassau, Suffolk, Westchester, and Bergen County have had a remarkable spring. First, they were forced to close on only a few days' notice and reinvent themselves on the fly as online institutions, making everything from e-book rentals and reference information to lectures and live performances migrate onto the internet. And just as they were getting comfortable with that, suddenly the reopening process started, bringing with it a whole new set of challenges. Now, I've told you before that the libraries need our help, and that is as true as ever. The libraries are working with 2020 budgets that did not make any provision for pandemic shutdowns. I mean, how could they? Or for the cost of reopening afterwards. Now, libraries get their money from donations and from local governments. I have to tell you, local governments have staggering challenges of their own to deal with, and the libraries are not going to be anywhere near the top of their agenda for the foreseeable future. So, if you are in a position to extend some financial support to your local library, this is absolutely the time to do it. If you're not in such a position, don't worry. It doesn't cost a bit to let the libraries know that you are on their side in this time of crisis. If your library has reopened for curbside service, as so many have, give them a drive-by, a honk, and a thumbs up, and let them know that you're with them. Send an email to the library's website or make a comment on the library's Facebook page. Library workers are fighting hard to get us back to the world that we are all used to living in, and they deserve our support. My lovely wife works for a library in Manhattan, which reopened for curbside service just a couple weeks ago now. Their first day's take included 5 boxes of returned books and 1 bottle of champagne, which had been dropped off by a grateful patron. It was a good thought, and I think this is a time we could all use some good thoughts. So, end of sermon, back to songs. Speaking of hard times, this song was written by the great Ferlon Huskey. It appears in my 2020 show, 3 Chords and the Truth, country's greatest songwriters, of which Ferlon Huskey was definitely one. This is a 1963 song that was a big hit for Johnny Cash. My bills are all due and the babies need shoes, but I'm busted. Cotton is down to a quarter a pound and I'm busted. I got a cow that went dry and a hen that won't lay. A big stack of bills that gets bigger each day. The county will haul my belongings away 'cause I'm busted. I went to my brother to ask for a loan. I was busted. I hate to beg like a dog for a bone, but I'm busted. My brother said there ain't a thing I can do. My wife and my kids are all down with the flu. And I was just thinking of calling on you, 'cause I'm busted. Lord, I ain't no thief, but a man can go wrong when he's busted. The food that we canned last summer is gone, and I'm busted. The fields are all bare and the cotton won't grow. Me and my family gotta get up and go. Where I'll make a living, the Lord only knows, but I'm busted. Speaking of Johnny Cash, I got a lot of requests for this next song. It was a hit for Cash in 1968. It was written by the great Shel Silverstein, who is maybe the most unlikely country songwriter ever. I say that because he was a Jew from Chicago who is best known as an author of children's books and humorous verse. Nonetheless, he is one of the greatest country songwriters of all time and scored a tremendous hit with this next song. It was Johnny Cash's only time in the top 10 on the Billboard Top 40. He was number 2 for 3 straight weeks. If you'd like to know which song was number 1 for those 3 weeks, well, check out the program notes on TennesseeWalt.com. But I will give you a hint. It was a country-style song by an iconic British rock group. Anyway, this is the song that Silverstein wrote for Cash. It's the story of a boy named Sue. Well, my daddy left home when I was 3, and he didn't leave much for Mama and me, just a busted piano and an empty bottle of booze. Now, I never blamed him because he run and hid, but the meanest thing he ever did was before he left, he went and named me Sue. Now, he must have thought it was quite a joke, and it got a lot of laughs from a lot of folk. It seems I had to fight my whole life through. Some gal would giggle and I'd turn red. Some guy would laugh and I'd bust his head. I tell you, life ain't easy for a boy named Sue. So I grew up quick and I grew up mean. My fists got hard, my wits got keen, running from town to hide my shame. And I made a vow to the moon and stars that searched Thompson bars and kill the man that gave me that awful name. Well, it was Gatlinburg in mid-July. I just hit town, my throat was dry. I thought I'd stop and have myself a brew. And there in a saloon on a street of mud, sitting at a table dealing stud, was the dirty mangy dog who named me Sue. Now I knew that snake was my own sweet dad from a worn-out picture that my mother had. I knew the scar on his cheek and his evil eye. He was big and bent and gray and old, and I looked at him and my blood ran cold, and I said, "Hello, my name is Sue. How do you do? And now you're gonna die." Well, I hit him hard right between the eyes, and he went down. But to my surprise, he come up with a knife and cut off a part of my ear. So I busted a chair right across his teeth, and it crashed through the wall and into the street, kicking and gouging and mud and the blood and the beer. Well, I'll tell you, I fought tougher men, but I really can't remember when. He kicked like a mule and bit like a crocodile. And I heard him laugh, and I heard him cuss, and he went for his gun, and I drew my fuss, and he sat there and looked at me, and I saw him smile. He said, "Son, this world is rough, and if a man's gonna make it, he's gotta be tough," and I knew I wouldn't be there to help you along. So I gave you that name and I said goodbye. I knew you'd have to get tough or die, and it's that name that's helped to make you strong. Now, son, you just fought a hell of a fight, and I know that you hate me and you've got the right to kill me now, and I wouldn't blame you if you do. But you ought to thank me before I die for the gravel in your gut and the spit in your eye, 'cause I'm the son of a bitch that named you Sue. Well, I got all choked up and I threw down my gun. I called him my pa and he called me his son, and I came away with a different point of view. And I think of him every now and then, every time I try and every time I win. And if I have a son, I'm gonna name him Well, George or Bob or Dave or anything, definitely not Sue. I still hate that name. Well, as I look at the works of Shel Silverstein, he's really an underrated composer. This is another one of his songs from 1974. It was originally recorded by the outlaw country singer and producer Tom Paul Glaser. Every Saturday night, I'm sorry, that wasn't a good start. Let's try that again, shall we? Every Saturday the daddy goes to pick up his kids, so I leave his kids and go to pick up my kids. Whose new daddy leaves my kids and picks up his kids. It goes round and round and round. Musical chairs, they've got mine and I've got theirs. Everybody shares and nobody cares in this game of musical chairs. I know she'll be nervous when she sees her ex. When I see my ex, she always suspects that her husband's ex is getting bigger alimony checks. It goes round and round and round. Musical chairs, they've got mine and I've got theirs. Everybody shares and nobody cares in this game of musical chairs. I'm working like a dog, keeping up with Harry Lee, who's working round the clock, keeping up with Jim McKee, who's going into hot, trying to keep up with me. It goes round and round and round. Musical chairs, they've got mine and I've got theirs. Everybody shares and nobody cares in this game of musical chairs. And every Saturday night I go slipping around to be with his while he's sneaking around to be with mine in this game that we found that goes round and round and round. Musical chairs, they've got mine and I've got theirs. Everybody shares and nobody cares in this game of musical chairs. Well, this time, as I did the last time, it occurred to me that I could actually take audience requests if I got to work on it ahead of time. And when I announced the show to the people on my mailing list and to the people who follow me on Facebook.com/TennesseeWalt, I asked people to send in any suggestions they might have for songs they'd like to hear me do. And I got a bunch of them back, and I thought I would do a few of them at this point. Elaine in Harrison, New York, asked for any song by Eddy Arnold. Now, Eddy Arnold, for those who don't know him, was born on May 15th, 1918, in rural Tennessee. He had another extremely long career. He had a single on the charts in late May of 2008, several weeks after he had died at the age of 90. Arnold began his career as a classic country singer much in the style of his slightly younger contemporary Hank Williams. But in the mid-1950s, he embraced the style known variously as countrypolitan or the Nashville sound. And for the next 20 years, scored many of the greatest hits of his career as a smooth crooner backed by lush orchestrations and backup choruses. Now, personally, I actually prefer his earlier stuff, but I have a feeling that Elaine likes his Nashville sound hits, so here's one of them. It was written by the great Cindy Walker. It's from 1956. You give your hand to me and then you say hello, and I can hardly speak, my heart is beating so, and anyone can tell you think you know me well, but you don't know me. No, you don't know the one who dreams of you at night, who longs longs to kiss your lips and longs to hold you tight. To you I'm just a friend, that's all I've ever been, but you don't know me. For I never knew the art of making love, though my heart aches with love for you. Afraid and shy, I let my chance go by, the chance that